Hi everybody, I'm David and this is All Things Sacred. I've come here today to start talking about the tarot. So, I'm not sure how many people watching this have too much relationship to the tarot, but they're a set of cards that are often used for divination. I also use them for studying the various forces of the universe because that's exactly what the cards are, is a set of a set of description of the forces of the universe. That go to create not only the entire large cosmos, macrocosm, but also our small microcosm. We have the same elements composing us that compose the entire cosmos. And the tarot gives a very easy sort of mnemonic device to understand and to remember all these various forces, which is necessary early on. You do have to approach the cards from a somewhat intellectual standpoint so that you can remember all the specific meanings of them. But in reality, each of them is a spiritual gateway, a doorway, a portal into something that we already normally experience. But when you have it in a card, you're able to call it to yourself directly at any point you want, or even gain the lessons from difficult experiences that we often go through, because definitely not all the cards are happy or comfortable even. The basis of nature is founded upon the four elements, and that's represented in the tarot by the four suits. There's one for fire, earth, air, and water, and these are respectively the wands, the discs, the swords, and the cups. And so I'm going to go through each of those. I think I've decided to talk about the court cards as well in my description of the minor arcana, the 8 through the 10. The court cards are a commingling of different types of energies. We'll get to that when we come to it. The minor arcana, on the other hand, are the basic forms that each of these elements go to take in our lives and in the cosmic scale as a whole, based on its number as well. So traditionally, I think people would start with the wands, but I'm actually going to start with the swords, and then I think I'm going to do the cups, and then the wands, and then the discs, just because it's how it came to me, and it seems like the best thing to talk about first, personally, because a lot of people tend, and I did too early on, to intellectualize everything, to use the mind as my greatest tool, I thought. And it is a good tool, but, we can go beyond reason, beyond our small reasoning mind, into a realm of divine intelligence, where we have access to what is called like maybe an Akashic library, to the Akash, to the record of all things, into God's mind itself, so that we can be omnipresent and omniscient as well, just as the divine is. And that really, talking about that, what that mind is really the Ace of Swords. The aces are not a tangible quality, so to say. The aces more so are a potential quality of a given aspect of God. And this aspect of God would be his omniscience, his ability to know all, to see all things. And, the divine is embedded throughout the entire cosmos. And within every form is a spark of that divine intelligence that went together to form a perfect order that created our macrocosm, our microcosm, and all the processes, all the systems that keep it running. And that is what the Ace of Swords is. The Ace of Swords is that cosmic perspective, that cosmic intelligence that can be both up and down, in and out at the same time, that transcends reason, and that's greater than reason. We all work to be intelligent and well read and intellectual and all these different things, but the people who have never read a book in their life can have access to all the wisdom in the world if they look within and find that spark of the divine. And when they do that, and this card will show up in a reading possibly, it means that they're directly connected to God's divine intelligence, that the situation that they're in, the actions that they're taking are likely have a very good it's a very good omen, so to say, that they're able to reach inside themselves and, grab this sword from their own mind as well, like the birth of Athena coming out and shining forth, sword in hand, ready to do her father's work. And then the Athena at this point would be the actions that you would take as the father, giving direction. And based on the true father or mother, the divine, the source, coming directly from that. And so this is a very good card to see in a reading. It means that it's not saying that your actions have good consequences yet or will necessarily, but just that the actions themselves are good. The means are good, at least. And the aces only represent potential. This is, God's infinitude is something that is too difficult for the mind to just wrap itself around. And so the aces, they represent qualities of God. So they're infinite qualities that are, not just up for our grabbing. So it's a beautiful thing when the ace's sword shows up, because it really means that someone is at a point in their life where they're taking action to change things. Because the tarot is a cycle, and we'll get to the 10 of swords, and the 10 of swords isn't the happiest place to be. But from the 10 of swords is born the ace of swords. So God's divine intelligence went to form this plan to create the cosmos. And in that plan was the fact that the transcendent wisdom would be put as a seed within each and every form. And that if through evolution a species came that is able to look inward, they would find that latent seed, that innate seed, and learn how to awaken it, to find themselves and to find the divine. A communion is what occurs, and that's represented in the mind by the Two of Swords, the card of peace. This is being at peace and equal to your creator, because you see your creator within you. Both swords are the same. They stand together in beautiful unity. They create order, you can see by the pinwheels on the card, as well as holding the flower together. They birth the flower. They create the flower with their combined body and soul. Themselves being the flower, both divine and human, the God-man. The Two of Swords, the card of peace, is really about that center that we can find when we connect to the divine. It's a communion with something that is eternal, and it brings to us an everlasting peace. This card may show up in other people's readings for more mundane reasons, and that peace wouldn't be as eternal as the true cosmic greater perspective that is really found when someone expands their consciousness to cosmic perspectives. But nonetheless, this card is a representation of that, of the creation in working order, so to say. This is a very different card. This is the next one to come up. This is the Three of Swords. It's called the card of sorrow in Crowley's deck, which is the Thoth deck that I'm using here. This has to do also, because the first three cards are, I'm not really going to talk about in these videos the Tree of Life, but the Tree of Life is an image, and it has 10 points, 10 Sephiroth, and the top 3 points form a triangle, and below that triangle is mental and physical realms, but above this line, within the triangle are the spiritual concepts of any of the given elements, or you could apply the Tree of Life as a diagram to anything, any size, any part of the fractal. It's Tree of Life's up and down. Part of the so the three still sits within the spiritual divine essence, more so connection to God. So for that reason, the Three of Swords still is kind of focusing on this cosmic perspective. Of course, if it shows up in a reading about mundane things, then the lower aspects of the card of it being about separation from like a relationship or from friends is is going to show up, but really the deeper meaning of the cards, and I feel the most useful meaning, is to really also apply that cosmic perspective to it so that we can learn of our own divine essence through intellectualizing it almost. But it's really not, I'm talking about these cards, I'm using all these words, and you're probably having all these thoughts about what they mean, but I have to express, and I will throughout these videos, that no matter how much you know about a card, you can't really understand that card until you, as I said before, come face to face in meditation with it and realize it as an aspect of the divine, as an aspect of yourself, thus purifying all these various, sometimes seemingly difficult, other times beautiful, but varied things, experiences, ways of being, because we all have them as a mix within us, as our personality. The personality is the only place where we can, the ego is the only place where we can approach enlightenment. So we have to come from a place of ignorance and move towards a place of awakening. And so the Three of Swords, when someone approaches it from a place of ignorance, this is the card of sorrow, can see this card and see nothing good in it. They can see it as a dark, ugly thing. I've always tended to read the cards, even when I had, less understanding of them, in the most positive way possible. This is the card of separation, and this is part of God's plan too, which I'll get to, but, I'd always read the cards from a mundane perspective that there are still three swords. The flower is falling apart, but it's not completely broken. The creation still exists. There's pain, there's suffering, which is the part of the plan. But nonetheless, there's still three swords. They're all meeting at a point. So the idea on a mundane perspective is really that you'd be separated from a large group of people, but you would still retain a small group that is very close to you. And through that connection with that small group, you actually are able to go deeper. This is the plan, that we would be separated from the divine, that we would, as a soul, in the Two of Swords, know our divine essence, our divine connection, our divine unity. But for the soul to experience all that this world has to offer, and to really prove our love for the divine, we had to go through the greatest sorrow possible, which was separation from that divine, from God. Existing within God's bosom in the ocean of the divine, we were tossed out upon the shores. And this was the greatest pain that our soul had ever felt. But we were bedazzled by all the things of this world and overcome, and we forgot ourselves. The soul, during this process, was in a dual nature. It watched sadly as it forgot, but as it forgot, it embraced and enjoyed all these beautiful things and found love for them too, turning its eye away from the divine, looking downwards, so that the plan could be brought to fruition and not just to remain only ethereal, but bodily as well. And so there is a little more to this card actually. Within meditation, one can reconnect to their divine essence. And this sorrow and pain and discomfort that is our lives can be reversed, because in those sorrowful places, we are brought low and we are brought inward. And only by going inward can we find the divine essence. So this sorrow and this pain and these difficulties are, in a way, one of our greatest allies. They are but one of the means which the Cosmic Mother teaches us. And she's there waiting for us with open arms if we but look inside. That's the darkness of this. That's the meaning of this card. It's often considered like a mysterious one. For that reason, Crowley talked about the mystery of it. But that's because You can only find the truth of the mystery of meditation by meditating. You talk about meditation all day, but until you actually know how to go inward, it's not going to amount to much. It's not going to mean much. So next we have the Four of Swords. We're here in this creation. We've been given a mind. We've been given sense telephones. We can experience all that this creation has to offer. And, we've come to a point of truce, is the name of this card. It's kind of, I don't know why, it's a little comical to me. It's not a happy place to be. It's a place of tension, truly. But it's kind of like the soul's like, yeah, sure, I'll live with it. I'm not in my divine essence. I still have deep in myself the divine essence, and all this is beautiful, and I wish I could be one with God, or I wish for, where most people are at, where we're all at for the most part until we find otherwise. I wish I could talk to God even. I wish I could know God is real. I'm told he is. I don't even know where this comes from. But I'm here. I have this yearning. I don't know what this yearning is for, but, things are fine. It's an unhappy place to be, but that's okay. Because it's not as sorrowful place. It's not as difficult as what's going on before. There's not as much infighting within the self. The mind is at ease, though it knows it won't be at ease for long. And this is the mind getting to know itself, really, because then have the ace through the 3 are kind of the spiritual aspects of any element, and then the 4 through the 9, sort of the 4 through the 8 are kind of the they're the seat of the mind. They're the different aspects that the mind is or has, and that we could use as a tool that we have to kind of balance into 6 more than any other number. The 9 is the bridge more so than anything to the physical. It's the I guess if it's a bridge, it's like the personality. In many ways, it comes through. It takes all the pieces of the mind and it crystallizes them in the 9 and shoots it out to the 10, which is our creative world. And so the 4 is cementing creation. It's putting the plan a step down. It's no longer in the causal realm of the divine, but it's now in the astral realm of the mind, the emotions, the personality. So the 4 it's moved down from that essence, but it still contains that essence within it through the golden thread that connects to the 6, the 9, and the 10 from the ace. But it's something else, and this something else, it's all right. The mind says it has all the it has such great expanse to roam free in the astral realms, but it's just all right compared to the beauty that was found in the ace through the 2, and you could see from this card, there's still a lot of tension in the shapes around it. The very hard nature, the very sharp nature of the swords. But the flowers has much more petals now. So it's realized, the mind or the soul, that it's like, all right, I'll work with this mind. I'll use this mind. We'll create with you divine essence, and it'll be beautiful. It's kind of said with that tone as well. It's not a happy agreement necessarily all the way through for all parties, but of course the soul and the mind, which should be at this point a good servant rather than a bad one that overthrows the soul. At this point, it's still listening. And yeah, so this is the 5 then, and on the one hand, I guess this could go either way, because it would say, I could say not for long, but since it's so high up on the, there's an imbalance, the memory of the sorrow that was felt from the soul in the 3 is reflected to the mind in the 5. It was unable to get its way, so to say. It has to be a servant. The mind would rather be in charge, but at this point it recognizes its servitude. But this is, so to say, the seed of discontent. This is the You can tell from this card that it's a very unhappy feeling card. This is, when this shows up in a mundane aspect, it's really the idea that you're having to give in. That Well, there's a few things, because the mind, on the one hand, does recognize it's feeling a feeling of defeat because it has to bow down to the soul still at this point. But the soul also is feeling a sense of defeat as well, because the pentagram on this card is reversed. So spirit is beneath the elements. Spirit recognizes that it has to descend. Of course, it does this in bliss and joy. But it is the defeat of the spirit, despite the mind feeling as though it's the one being defeated. And this is a feeling of inadequacy kind of on all parts. It's a very imbalanced and unhappy part. The swords don't do well with, the mind doesn't do well with much imbalance, with much negativity at all. It's very sensitive, one of the more sensitive of the elements. It's invisible. It's our communication with each other. It's our communication with the divine. It's our communication between the soul and the mind. And at this point, the communication is very unhappy. Lines are crossed. There's not even a flower to be seen. All that work kind of at this point feels like it was for naught, because even if there was a creative earthly success that was found from this collaboration in the 4, at the 5, it's barely remembered. All that is felt is the feeling of inadequacy and defeat and lowness. It's just a stepping stone, really. It's the middle point where the mind kind of, not quite yet, but it starts to, like I said, the seed of discontent means that the mind recognizes that it has an ability to take some sort of control, and that's kind of what naturally has to happen, because we have to remember the lessons of the 3, the sorrow of the 3, and realize that will reach to greater extents in some of the later cards. I'm going to pause there for a sec.